If you had to do your top three, your superstars of nutrients for the brain and body, what would you put in alongside? So I take over the counter. I know I feel better because I've done the experiment of going on and off. My mood is better. My joints feel better. I just feel better.
Is there one nutritional supplement that can save your life? Hi, I'm Dr. Eric Westman, and welcome to my channel where I review and debunk nutritional information online. In this video, we're going to hear about supplements and adding things other than the diet. Isn't the diet enough? One would wonder. And we'll see what all the experts say. Be sure to wait till the end to see my final thoughts. I want to invite you to join my free webinar, Beyond Cholesterol, the two biggest risk factors for cardiovascular disease. If you're confused about cholesterol or feeling pressured to take medication to lower your cholesterol, this webinar is for you. I'll provide the facts you need to understand why cholesterol isn't the most important factor in assessing your risk for cardiovascular disease, and what you should focus on instead to better reduce your risk. See the link in the description to sign up.
Today, with all the technological advancement in medicine, 1 in 3 people still dies from heart disease and stroke. Chronic inflammation is virtually everywhere, making you tired, painful, increase your risk of this cardiovascular disease, and makes your body age faster. If this isn't enough, we also have an epidemic of depression and ADHD. What if there was one supplement that could target all these 3 issues simultaneously? Many people are taking it every day, but they are taking it in the wrong way, making 3 crucial mistakes. So they see no benefit or even harming themselves. To ensure that you are not one of these people, you'll discover what the experts are doing and taking. Dr. Rhonda Patrick, Dr. Peter Attia, and Dr. Andrew Huberman. And I'm also gonna share what I do with my clients and what I found in the last 16 years of research of this fascinating supplement.
So always consider the source of the video, and Ryman at Wellness Messiah with Ryman. I don't know him personally. He's going to be using the other expert testimonials to come up with a recommendation.
If you had to do your top three, your superstars of nutrients for the brain and body, what would you put in alongside them?
Omega-3, the marine omega-3 fatty acids. So these are found in marine types of, animals, fish, cold water fish, fatty fish.
I take EPA and DHA, so I take fish oil.
Dr. Andrew Huberman speaks about his experience.
So I take over-the-counter fish oil. I know I feel better because I've done the experiment of going on and off. My mood is better. My joints feel better. I just feel better. And I like to think that my platelets are slipperier and they're cruising through any little obstructions in my veins or arteries. That's the image I have in my head.
Dr. Huberman suggested omega-3 impact on his platelets because omega-3 reduces his inflammation levels. Chronic inflammation is a destructive process that on its own increases the risk of death from any cause. For example, this study found that chronic inflammation was associated with twice the risk of sudden cardiac death. In addition, inflammation affects your mood, your pain levels, your swelling, and the risk of cardiovascular disease and the rate of aging.
So this is great mechanistic information, and it's interesting to see people jumping on taking fish oil. We haven't heard anyone say maybe we should eat more fish. and remember, we haven't heard anything about dietary change yet, but just taking a supplement. This might get a little confusing with the inflammation, but the big picture view is that the general thought is you want to reduce inflammation, inflammation being the root cause or kind of the suspect, primary suspect for all of these different things. There are other things that can matter as well. And then you don't want inflammation to go down to 0, because you need to be able to repair the things that are going on, even that you're not aware of, where you have these minor little bleeds and clots going on, even little cancers inside that our body is fighting. And so that's where you want a general situation of lower inflammation, lower stress, better nutrition for sure. And maybe fish oil. I mean, we haven't seen any science yet that says fish oil given to humans, randomize people, see how they do over time. That would be ideal. So let's stay tuned. keep looking.
You have a biomarker that I can use to say I'm taking too much, I'm taking too little, I'm treating to a red blood cell membrane concentration of EPA and DHA of about 12%.
So you can look at the red cell membrane or membrane. So the membranes are the coat of the cells. The red blood cell being something you can actually take out of the blood and look at the concentration. This is fascinating to see that it's dialed down to this level where I would like to see some study prospectively over time that that's the best level, wouldn't you?
The fish oils, those are very important for inflammation. And it turns out one of these molecules activates SIRT1.
Dr. Rhonda Patrick speaks about omega-3 and longevity.
In the case of Bill Harris's work, he's measuring the omega-3 index in people and then looking at their mortality risk. And what he has found is that people that had a omega-3 index of 4% or lower, they had a 5-year decreased life expectancy compared to people that had an 8% omega-3 index. Big difference there, right? 5 years life expectancy. But here's the really interesting thing. And he also looked at smokers. Smokers that had no omega-3 were like the worst of all. But smokers that had the high level, like smokers that were taking their fish oil or eating fish or whatever it was they were doing to get them up to 8%, they had the same life expectancy as non-smokers with the low omega-3 index.
So if you've watched my channel, you know some of the things we repeat over time, that correlation does not mean causation. So if you watch a nutritional epidemiology study, or you check a biomarker in somebody and you don't experimentally change it, it's basically correlation over time. Correlation does not mean causation unless there's a huge effect, like there was never a randomized trial of cigarette smoking to show that it caused lung cancer, because the rate of lung cancer was so much higher among smokers than those who didn't smoke. That was enough to say, you know, this, and there was a biologic plausibility. I mean, you're inhaling all these toxins. So here I'm left with still kind of a biomarker. I'm reminded, though, of the situation of the Inuit. There are certain populations that didn't eat carbohydrates. That's why we know in the low-carb world and tell stories about the Inuit, the Maasai, other populations that really haven't had many carbs. When the Inuit were looked at, examined in the early 1900s, when the Inuit were looked at in the early 1900s, they really didn't have cancers. They didn't have cardiovascular disease, which was interesting. And of course, the low-carb people look at that and say, I mean, people who eat low-carb diets or study them or show the science behind them, look at the Inuit and say, it's because they had a low-carb diet. Well, they also ate a lot of fish. And the idea, maybe the causal factor might have been the fish that they were eating, the fish oil, this kind of membrane change. But I do also remember there was a side effect something they saw in that population that was greater than other populations, and that was bleeding. They had a problem that was nosebleeds and other kinds of bleeds, which might have been, well, because if you take too much fish oil, you can get the bleeding. Did you hear early on that there was this platelet change and the idea that fish oil could make your body have better circulation, less clogging up of arteries, that sort of thing? Well, that in too much might make you have a tendency toward bleeding. So you don't want to take so much fish oil or aspirin, and together even aspirin can be a mild anticoagulant, or any other supplement that might be an anticoagulant. If you get a bleeding issue, you want to cut back on that, or perhaps measure the red blood cell inflammation. I'm interested in that. I never order that because I'm not impressed with the science behind it yet, but maybe it exists. Let's see.
First one is omega-3. You're the supplement experts. What can you say? How does it affect aging, Ramon?
Yeah, technically speaking, it affects 3 longevity pathways. PPR alpha, I'm going to touch this in a second. The second is inflammation. The third longevity mechanism is omega-3 improves insulin sensitivity. But my favorite one is the PPR alpha, because this PPR alpha is a longevity mechanism that also helps your body to burn fat. So in essence, omega-3, I've been using it with my weight loss clients. It's a fat that helps to burn fat. Now, even if you are convinced about the benefits of taking omega-3, you are not in the clear yet. There are 3 major mistakes most people make. Let's cover them right now, one by one. And we're also going to discover the brands the experts are taking right now, and we're even going to touch the plant-based omega-3 supplements as well.
So interesting to see so far, just focused on the supplement. You did hear reference to eating fish by one expert, which would be a natural or real food-based way to get that kind of nutrient. The other interesting thing is the studies are basic science, more theoretical. These things make a change in these enzymes and controlling factors which are linked to longevity or less long a life. And so therefore taking the supplement must be good for you, when I would rather hold back and see, giving it to people over time, do they live longer? This is not difficult research to do if you control every other factor. But then I'm wondering, what if you ate a low-carb diet? What if you ate a low-carb diet with the supplement? Do you get added advantage, or are there problems that might arise because you're not eating the carbohydrates? And the studies that have been done have been in people who eat carbohydrates. I have those concerns about any medication if it's been studied under conditions that were high-carb diets, and now the assumption is that it will work for people with a different metabolism, which is a low-carb metabolism, even maybe keto metabolism. I don't know that these medicines will have the same effect. They might even have more side effects than they had when people were eating carbohydrates and taking the medicine. I know that makes it even a little more complicated, but I think it's important to pause and always say, under what conditions were those medications or supplements studied? And pretty much, 100% they're under conditions of people eating carbohydrates. The reason this is an issue is we know reducing carbohydrate intake has powerful effects on reducing inflammation. So you might not need those anti-inflammatory effects of a supplement, or it might become too powerful if you add it on to a lifestyle change that already is having anti-inflammatory effects.
Let's discover the omega-3 brands the experts are taking, and I'm going to show you what I do and what I take personally. Peter touched the brand that he likes.
So I use Carlson's EPA and DHA. I can't remember exactly which one I take. It is the highest EPA version that they have.
Well, if you've been watching my channel, I'm not a big supplement guy. I think a lot of people have kind of grown up. If your parents took a lot of supplements, they have basically told you that you can't get enough nutrition, the soil is depleted, reasons to have different supplements. Some people come to my office and they're on a dozen supplements, 5 to 10, 12 supplements, and for some reason they think these aren't drugs, or you can't get this in the food that you eat. And so, of course, the most important thing here is to change what you're eating to get what we believe are the bad nutrients, or nutrients that don't give you any vitamins or minerals. Get those out of your diet first. And if I had to worry about every nuance about whether the fish oil is shipped, and whether, I would be more like Peter Attia, where I'm not quite sure which one I take, but I don't take fish oil. I'm not convinced yet in prospective clinical trials. I think there's pretty good science about the depression, which we heard about already, that if you have depression, fish oil might help. Of course, changing the diet can help with depression as well. Again, the message of this video is not about diet change, it's about supplement change, but I also wonder if that would hold true or be necessary in the context of a low-carb diet.
And let me ask you a question. Fish oil, is cod liver oil, would that be under the same category or no?
Yeah.
Same as fish oil.
Cod liver oil, as the name suggests, is extracted from the liver of cod fish. This extraction process results in a product that contains fat-soluble vitamins, such as vitamin A, vitamin D, in addition to these very precious omega-3 fatty acids. However, cod liver oil typically has lower concentration of omega-3 fatty acids compared to regular fish oil, and personally, I'm not a fan of vitamin A supplementation that comes with this cod liver oil unless there is a specific need, since vitamin A can be harmful. Additionally, the vitamin D content in cod liver oil, in my opinion, is not sufficient to address a significant vitamin D deficiency. Therefore, personally, I prefer fish oil in most situations because it provides a higher concentration of omega-3 supplement, offering the highest value for the cost without unnecessary vitamin A. And of course, if you decide to buy cod liver oil, still you must prevent this aforementioned oxidation issue, since it is too, similar to fish oil, is easily oxidized. So besides taking fish oil supplements that are not oxidized, what about plant-based omega-3? Sources such as chia seeds, walnuts, and flax seeds. You probably heard of them.
So I was reminded of the cod liver oil, popular use of it when I was a child, the 70s, 60s, 1960s, 70s, cod liver oil, very popular, maybe even today. Tell me, if you're taking cod liver oil, you might be getting the omega-3s in there and even other fat-soluble vitamins, which are, of course, essential. You need to eat them. But we're seeing an expert who's fine-tuning the recommendations based on lots of different factors. And I'm reminded of a vitamin manufacturer that got upset with me because I said that, why can't you get the vitamins that you need in the food? And anyway, any vitamin manufacturer thinks theirs is the best and has the reasons for why theirs is best. Just like if you go to a car dealer, they're going to talk about their car being the best for various reasons. It might not be the fastest, but it's the safest or it's the cheapest. So I'm not persuaded yet. I'm waiting for the randomized trials, so prospective studies. You ideally separate just the one factor of giving fish oil or manipulating the red blood cell index. I don't see any causation studies, experimental studies of manipulating the red blood cell index to see if you can prevent heart disease or live longer. So that's an assumption based on correlative research that if we see people who have higher red blood cell indices, they do better. If I can only get to that index, I will do better as well, without regard to how many other possible confounding factors and are there any side effects of taking a medicine that gets you to that red blood cell index. So there are all sorts of steps along the way in testing whether fish oil is beneficial and then whether there are harms that go along with it. And they might not be, large harms, they might not be frequent, but if you're just looking at the good, you also have to look at the possible side effects, and we really don't know until you get that sort of prospective evaluation. I used to be in the drug development world. It was for smoking cessation drugs, and there is a requirement in the US that you go through the Food and Drug Administration approval process if you're going to make a claim about your drug. So drug manufacturers take that step because they want to make claims about it. They want to be on the advertising airwaves, and we're one of the few countries where drug companies can actually market directly to the consumer on TV or on your streaming platform. So they take the time to go through those studies. If it says that this has not been evaluated by the FDA, what that basically means is that the companies are selling these products without going through the FDA approval. You could say, well, they don't have to. Well, yes, they do. If you're going to say that you live longer by taking my product, but don't worry, it's not FDA cleared, what that basically means, they haven't done the studies to prove what you're thinking that they're going to do. So just, let the buyer beware. If it says these have not been evaluated by FDA, it typically means they haven't been evaluated to the level of criteria of outcome studies that you would want to see if it's worth taking the medicine or supplement in the first place. In the keto world, we're in that similar situation where ketone pills and gummies and products and drinks are making the rounds and being sold without FDA level scrutiny because the companies say, well, it's not a drug. Well, if it has drug-like effects and you're studying them and they have drug-like effects, then is it not they're basically making the legal argument that it's not necessary to have FDA approval. But what about the ethical and moral arguments that we really want to know that you're doing more harm than, really want to know that you're doing more good than harm when you're letting these out on the market? So we're in that space here in these omega-3 fish oil supplements where in the Petri dish it looks good, in early studies it might look good, or in correlative research it looks good. Looks good for depression. I think that's been well studied. Not so clear with cardiovascular disease, although if you're thinking about triglyceride and HDL in the blood as a cardiovascular issue, the metabolic syndrome, fish oil has been known for a long time to lower the triglyceride level in the blood. So if you have that as a particular issue and diet isn't enough, of course a low-carb diet will address the metabolic syndrome and lower the triglyceride in the blood in just about every instance. So do you really need to add in something else to do something that the diet is already doing? If you choose not to do a low-carb or keto diet, then maybe the supplement would have more benefit because you're not getting the dietary change benefit that's independent of that, not needing that supplement. Hope that's helpful. So me, I don't take fish oil. If you're going to ask influencers, I'm not convinced yet, but I have changed my diet and I don't eat all that much fish actually. And I know Prof. Noakes, Tim Noakes in Cape Town, who's the lead editor of the book Ketogenic, which is the scientific textbook about low-carb diets that came out last year. I know he argues that humans evolved on a marine sort of diet, including fish, and therefore we should have more fish. Again, that's not convincing me, but will there ever be a study that just addresses whether fish oil or eating more fish will lead to less heart disease and longer life independent of everything else that you're doing? The argument is a good one. We might never see that study. So in the meantime, you have to make that decision on your own. If you like, please like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, and look for content on Wednesdays and Fridays now. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, and check out adaptyourlifeacademy.com.